Sounds good.
So hello friends again. Here is our second in series on healthy living. Today we are discussing immune support again with Brooke Seiz. Let me introduce her briefly. She is a functional nutrition practitioner helping women holistically to get their groove back using system-based approach. Brooke is board certified holistic nutrition, certified in functional medicine, and is a master's in counseling and psychology degree candidate. So if you have any questions at the end, she will answer them, and she can tell you more about what is functional medicine. And so, Brooke, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Magda. So today we'll be, as you see here, going into immune support, and we've got 30 minutes. So I'll wrap up by about 12:30, and then we'll have time for a Q&A. So if questions come up as I'm going through the slides and the information, feel free to put it in the chat box, and then I'll circle back and make sure to answer those at the end. With immune support, there's so much we could talk about. So as I was trying to kind of condense this down to 30 minutes, we're first going to go into kind of how the immune system operates so we can understand what we need to support in the body in order to have an optimally functioning immune system. And then we'll go into what are the nutrients or things that can support those different parts of immune function. I always share at the beginning that this class isn't intended to treat, diagnose, or mitigate any disease. If you get sick, go see your healthcare provider. But hopefully this can also give you some tools to support your health in day-to-day life. If you decide to start any supplements or, new vitamins, there are sometimes interactions with prescription medications. I often refer people to their pharmacist. My brother's a pharmacist, and they are really great at just looking up what those contraindications can be. You can call your doctor too, but sometimes it's easier to get on the phone with a pharmacist if you're needing that more quickly, and they can give you that information. So, and you're welcome to put this in the chat box, like just put a letter A, B, C, D, or E. What do you think? What is the immune system? Is it A, cells that fight off infections, B, proteins that neutralize toxins, C, barriers against pathogens, D, healthy bacteria living in our gut, or E, all of the above? Any guesses? I see 4. I see D. Is that D? Healthy bacteria living in our gut. I've got some E's. Yeah, it's actually all of the above. So they're all really important. If you guessed any of the other ones, you're right. And it's everything. The immune system is all of these things and more. So sometimes we hear about immune support, we think like vitamin D, which is true. But vitamin D is just going to help one part of the immune system, or maybe a couple parts. And so there's different things for all these different pieces. So first of all, when we think about immune support, our skin is an immune support. We have a lot of immunosecretions and cells in our skin. We have lipids that are antimicrobial in nature, which means they can help fight off bacteria, because that's our barrier, right? It's what stops things from getting inside of our body. Then we have mucous membranes in our nose, in our mouth, in our GI tract that also have immunosupportive properties or cells or things there that can protect against things getting in the body. And on that note, do remember that the digestive tract, we're like a big donut. So we think of when I eat and I swallow, it's in my body, but it's not actually in our body yet. So gut health is huge when it comes to immune support, is having a healthy digestive tract, having healthy bacteria in the gut. Because the lining of our gut is that barrier, just like our skin on the outside. That is a barrier that protects things from getting in the body. We have that in our nose, our ears. There are things that can help protect that barrier. We'll get into, again, a little more on that and what to do about it. There's also proteins in the bloodstream that kill pathogens and neutralize toxins. So you may have heard the word antibodies. Those are in our blood that are going to be looking for things that shouldn't be there, identifying those, tagging them with an antibody, and then we have killer cells and other inflammatory cells that will come destroy and clean that up. So if we have an immune response in the body, it is mounted because there's something foreign, because there's a pathogen or an immune provocative substance that penetrates a barrier. And what that means, immune provocative substance, it could be that we have some bacteria that lives in the gut, but if it gets through the gut barrier into the bloodstream, it's now going to trigger the immune system because it's just not supposed to be there. And so it could be that there's things that are naturally occurring in one part of the body that get somewhere else and just shouldn't be in that part of the body. And that could mount an our body would mount an immune response against that. These, local immune cells that are responsible for identifying these things, they're like the first responders, right? We call for that help to deal with this invader, this thing that's not supposed to be there. And then those are once that happens, there's going to be more immune cells that get recruited, and we're going to get the start of an inflammatory response. And you've probably heard the word inflammation. It's like this big kind of health term. It can be problematic, but it's also a healthy process in the body. It's how we repair damage. It's how we deal with foreign, a virus or bacteria or things that get in the body that are pathogens. And what we see here with this little picture or graph is that if something is identified, we're going to get this high inflammatory response at first. And then we would have anti-inflammatory processes that come in and say, hey, we've dealt with this now, we're resolving it, we're healing, and start to shut down that inflammation. So obviously the purpose of inflammation is to deal with those things that could cause harm to our cells or into our body. There are phagocytes in our body that will eat and destroy those pathogens, mostly bacteria. There's antiviral cells that destroy infected cells. We have helper cells that notify specialized immune cells there's a problem. And there's other physiologic changes that will occur in the body to help prevent that pathogen from replicating. It can take about 7 to 10 days for the specialized cells to be ready to fight an infection. So that's why there's, we've heard about this a lot this year with COVID, right? That's why there's this time period of, you can get infected, your body then identifies there's an issue, and then we have to kind of mount the response. So if you've ever gotten a bad cold or sinus infection and you felt like your neck, you feel those hard spots in there, that's your body. It's like building an army. It's building these cells that it's going to send out to orchestrate this attack and clear up the infection. And so that can hurt and be uncomfortable, but it's also sometimes nice to know your body's like doing what it's supposed to do to fight this thing. And that, yes, there's probably some sort of issue or infection or virus occurring that your body is working on. And we'll get into the ways you can help support your body in that process. Once we do address that issue, once the infection is cleared, then there's this resolution phase. And the body remembers it. That's where we get some immunity, right? When we talk about immunity, the body is now going to recognize, oh, okay, now we know about this specific foreign invader, and we'll know next time not to, what's going on. I won't go into all that, but that's why we get some immunity for a while, as the body's now been exposed to it and dealt with it. We rebuild any tissue, repair cells, the inflammation starts to slow down. If it doesn't resolve properly, this is where we get into chronic inflammation. And so chronic inflammation refers to this ongoing low to high level inflammation that goes on over time after the immune response should have completed. And this can cause this like oxidative stress, which is essentially damage to our cells over time that can create some health issues or symptoms. Chronic inflammation, it's, as I mentioned, damaging to tissue, and that in and of itself can suppress the immune system. So if we know we have some inflammation, and inflammation happens from a lot of factors. It could be due to a poor diet, lots of sugar, alcohol, refined sugars and flours. It can occur due to micronutrient deficiencies if we're not getting all of our essential vitamins and minerals. It can occur due to some bacteria in the gut. Sometimes we don't even know that's there, but if digestion isn't working well, that's a good sign to take a deeper look and work on gut health so that we address any inflammation there. Stress, we'll talk about that soon, but inflammation, stress induces inflammation. So that is why I'm finishing my master's of counseling psychology, is I spent a lot of years seeing nutrition clients and realizing we've done a lot of great stuff with nutrition, and supplements, but this kind of chronic stress is really maybe causing some of the issue. And so working on that is always important. If we get this chronic inflammation, it can lead to some dysregulation in the immune system that might, in some people that are more predisposed to autoimmunity, cause an autoimmune disease or some autoimmune problems. And if you're not sure what autoimmunity is, that's the inability of our immune system to separate our tissue from foreign pathogens or foreign particles, food particles, things like that. And so the body it's like the immune system gets confused and starts fighting against self tissue. And so if you've heard of like Hashimoto's thyroid is quite common, celiac disease, there's a whole slew of autoimmune diseases. And if that's present, we always want to work on gut health and immune regulation to help with that. So given some of these basic concepts, right? We have skin. How do we support our skin barrier? How do we support the mucosal membranes throughout our respiratory system and our gastrointestinal tract? How do we support just those cells that are in our body that will be dealing with anything that comes up? So there's a lot of research regarding immunonutrition, and that is just nutrition that supports immune function. And so we know that malnutrition is the most common cause of immunodeficiency worldwide. And we don't run into malnutrition in this country as much as some other countries in terms of getting enough calories. But we do have a lot of malnutrition in terms of nutrients, in terms of getting enough vitamin D or getting enough vitamin C or selenium, et cetera, et cetera. So we don't have time, obviously, to cover all of the research on this, but we'll cover some of the really well-established best paradigms for the nutrients that support immune function. So we'll start with skin health. And there are some essential nutrients and also what we call conditionally essential nutrients to support skin health, which just means that you may not see them listed as something you have to get from food, but if we're low in other things, they become essential. And so these are the conditionally essential nutrients for skin health. And one trigger for this would be to know that maybe you have wounds that don't heal as quickly. If you get a cut or something, it seems to take a while to heal. That might be one way you could know, like, oh, maybe I should do some immune support, some nutritional support for my skin, which in turn can support the immune system and help with that healing process. Arginine is an amino acid you can get in supplement form. It's also high in nuts and seeds. So eating your nuts and seeds, you will get good amounts of arginine. And it's a precursor to proline, which is used for collagen synthesis. And collagen is all throughout our skin. It's also in our joints and in our gut. It is a big part of our connective tissue. So it's important to support collagen. Vitamin C also increases collagen synthesis. I just did a class last night on bone broth. So if you enjoy making bone broth or buying bone broth, that can give you collagen and give you that plus vitamin C is a great thing to do for gut health and for skin. And you can see here that one trial looked at a blend of vitamin C, E, and zinc and found that that resulted in a much stronger, healthier skin barrier. As we talked about, the GI tract is a major barrier. So probiotics, that is healthy bacteria that you can get from fermented foods. So fermented foods would be things like kombucha or kimchi is what I was trying to say. Kimchi, sauerkraut, any sort of cultured vegetables. Bubby's is a brand of pickles that if you like pickles, you could try switching your pickles to not a pickled pickle, but which means it has vinegar in it, but a fermented pickle, which you would find in the refrigerated part of a grocery store, and it would say salt in the ingredients instead of vinegar. There's a couple brands out there, but Bubby's is a common one. So yogurt, kefir, those are other things that would have probiotics, or you can take a probiotic supplement. Prebiotics are the food for that bacteria. So we want that so that we can have good, healthy populations of bacteria in the gut. and you get those in your veggies. So eating a lot and a rainbow of vegetables, lots of foods that have fiber like butternut squash or acorn squash, sweet potatoes. You can also take that in the form of a powder if you wanted to supplement it. Glutamine is an amino acid that many people will take to support gut health. And if you've ever heard the term leaky gut, glutamine is something used for leaky gut to help with a healthy barrier in the GI tract and heal that area. Things that would damage this barrier in the gut are alcohol, sugar, gluten is a big one. Not everybody is sensitive to gluten, but it does have a specific action on the tight junctions, which are little things that hold our gut cells tight together, and it causes them to open a little bit. So if somebody has healthy GI function and a healthy immune system, they usually don't notice any sort of symptom. But if there's some dysregulation already, gluten can kind of be irritating to the gut lining. So that's something to consider, is kind of avoiding or limiting those foods. All right, so we talked about the mucous membranes having certain proteins. There's something called Secretory IGA. In practice, when I get a stool test back, it actually looks at this. And when it's low, we know that we want to provide some support there, that the immune system in the gut, and there's 70% of our immune system in the gut. If we see that low, we know we've got kind of lowered immunity in the gut, and we might have some leaky gut because that barrier is maybe not so strong. So some things we can do, at least for that barrier in the throat. Studies show that zinc lozenges or syrup are very supportive of immune function in the mouth. So sucking on a zinc lozenge once a day is a great way to get your zinc, especially if you feel a little out of sorts. Maybe using some zinc lozenges can be helpful and support the immune system in the mouth and throat, and also in the gut. And we also have, prebiotics and probiotics are going to help with that as well. Talked about that. Vitamin A deficiency can severely impair secretory IgA synthesis. So if you're really concerned about immune health, maybe you're a little concerned about your gut, like a sign of this can be, I've got some people where maybe they eat really well, but every time they go have some sugar, they feel like they just get something right away. And they feel like they have kind of a lowered immune function. Then this might be something to look at, is supporting the secretory IgA in the gut. And vitamin A, you want preformed. For women of childbearing age, be careful with how much preformed vitamin A. We don't want to have more than 5,000 IU. For anybody else, you can take higher doses if need be. But if you're not sure about this, I'd probably suggest somewhere under that, is a good amount. You can get that in cod liver oil. So that's one way to get some preformed vitamin A. You can get it in eggs, and like milk often has the vitamin A in there. You can also take a vitamin A supplement. Most multivitamins have beta carotene, which should convert to vitamin A, but it's not a preformed vitamin A. So in this case, we're talking about getting like some vitamin A in our food or supplement that's preformed. This one's my favorite because I love dark chocolate, is that you can supplement with cocoa flavonoids to enhance IgA synthesis in the GI tract. If you do like a smoothie, you could put some raw cacao in there, would be a good way to get that. So then we have these cells that have to respond if the barrier does get permeated or penetrated. And so how do we support those cells? One is just making sure that we're getting all of our essential nutrients. So this can go back if you feel like food, you're working on it. That can be a process if you start focusing on getting everything through your food. A multivitamin is one way to make sure you're getting some dose of all the essential nutrients. We also want to make sure we're getting enough protein. I usually recommend a palm-sized portion of protein at each meal. If you're eating at least 2 meals a day, that'll, get you 40 or 50 grams usually. And then, if you're eating a snack, you can get a little bit there as well. So protein and essential nutrients. And then this here is saying that stress hormones, such as cortisol, can negatively affect immune cells in the spleen and thymus. And so we, again, another little plug to come to Magda's meditation class. And, if stress is a factor, because that can be really, really helpful for immune function. Um, Most immune cells are relatively short-lived, less than 28 days. So we require a lot of turnover. We need to keep building those immune cells, and we need B vitamins to do that. B6, folate, and B12 especially. If you take a multivitamin, there's a B complex in there. If you don't, you can always take a B complex, or again, start kind of like getting those foods in that provide the B vitamins. I oftentimes will recommend taking them together in a multi or a B complex if you're supplementing them, because they work so synergistically. It's nice to just get all the Bs together. Some other nutrients that support the immune cell numbers, or creating these and helping this turnover, is vitamin D. So, and we've seen now the CDC released a recommendation to take vitamin D with what's going on with the pandemic, because they're finding that people that get hospitalized for COVID have lower levels of vitamin D or are deficient in vitamin D. So that's one really great thing. One thing I say on all of these classes, in light of everything happening in the world, is that this is something we can have control over. And it feels like there's a lot of things that are out of people's control this past year. And so I kind of hope that some of this feels empowering, that if you've felt concerned, here's some things that we actually have some control over to do to help support health, and pass on to other people who feel worried. Vitamin C, we mentioned. Branched chain amino acids, you get those in animal foods at pretty good levels. If you're vegetarian or vegan, you can supplement these. You will get some of them in plant foods, but it's not quite as much as you would get in an animal food. So for vegans and vegetarians, what I have some of my clients do is take like a plant-based protein powder, and then a BCA, a branched chain amino acid powder, and just add a little scoop to that to take occasionally. Selenium is another immunosupportive mineral, so that is really important as well. And we already talked about the probiotics and prebiotics. I wanted to throw this in because oftentimes people don't hear as much about mushrooms and immune function. There's estimated to be over 140,000 different mushroom species. About 10% have been identified, and over 700 of them possess pharmacological activity. So we can really get a lot of health benefit from these things that grow in our planet. They have a cell wall that's made of glucans, and there's alpha glucans and beta glucans, and these produce these immunomodulatory proteins. They can interact with the receptors on our immune cells and support or modulate immune function. We have lots of studies showing that early stages of immune function, that glucans support the early stages of immune function during the first 1 to 5 days of an immune response. So here's some fun little tip if you want to check this out. If you're a coffee drinker or a tea drinker, you can get coffee and tea that has mushrooms in it. And there's some brands that are really tasty that you can't tell that they're in there, but it's a way to get this in on a daily basis, and taking them warm, just like you would cook a soup with mushrooms, is a good way to absorb the glucans. Then we have a resolution phase of the immune response. Here are some things that will support that. One is EPA and DHA. So you may have heard that those are anti-inflammatory in nature. Basically what they do is they help the body produce prostaglandins that shut down inflammation. And so we want to get plenty of that in fish oil. If you don't eat fish, you're allergic to fish, or you just don't have that as part of your diet, there are supplements that are from algae that will provide the DHA and EPA. If you eat fish, I would suggest wild caught fish a few times a week, if possible, will usually give you sufficient EPA and DHA. Probiotics will help here, vitamin D. Turmeric will help here as well. Turmeric can help modulate that inflammatory response and help it resolve. And then for long-term immune support, We we want to avoid sugar will cause a transient suppression to the immune system. And by transient, I mean it's not forever. So don't panic if you go somewhere and you want to have a piece of birthday cake or something. But know that during the time after you eat that sugar, the immune system is depressed until some time goes by and we digest and then that can kind of come back. So, this past year, sometimes when people ask me about sugar, I say, if you're going to eat it, maybe eat it at home. And you don't go out and be around as much, as many people so that you can prevent any issue. Or now we're all getting used to wearing masks and things like that. So maybe after sugar, we can do a little more to make sure we don't get sick. And then in the long term, kind of avoid having that on a daily basis. Same thing with processed and refined flours and grains, which would be things like donuts or bagels or breads, like kind of keeping an eye on that, not, and making sure that we're relying on complex carbohydrates, which would be whole grains and sweet potatoes and things like that. So just excellent nutrition. The rainbow of veggies is another one to mention, sufficient protein, and then getting these nutrients in our foods or in our supplements. Vitamin A, C, selenium, zinc, the B vitamins, the probiotics, the D, and the healthy fats. And a lot of these we can get through food. Vitamin D is the hardest one because we get that from the sun, mostly. So there's some that may need to be supplemented, and then there's some that you can just incorporate into your diet. Some nutrients can provide timely immune support. This is going to be more like, oh, I think I was exposed to something, or I feel something coming on. I feel like I need a little extra support. Mushrooms are great for that. Reishi is a really good one. There's also one by Host Defense that's at, health food stores, and it has a whole blend of mushrooms. I think it's called, I forget the name, but it's like a combo immune support mushroom supplement. Vitamin D, I would use that more earlier on to make sure levels are good, but that can help too throughout the winter. Prebiotics, probiotics again, and we have the zinc lozenges or syrup. And I thought there was one more slide, but I think that covers it. The other thing I'll throw in are, I didn't really put herbs in here, like elderberry, there's echinacea, there's different herbs. If you have an autoimmune issue, there's some of those that would be contraindicated. Elderberry is usually fine. I wouldn't so much use echinacea there because we don't want to like stimulate the immune system too much. We just want to modulate it, help it out. So sticking more with the essential nutrients like vitamin C, glutathione is a powerful antioxidant, would be great. And selenium and zinc and some of those. But there is a whole world of herbs, and to add on to the elderberry or echinacea, there's astragalus, there's andrographis, there's some of them aren't popping into my head right now, but there's a bunch. Golden seal is great if it's like sinus. Holy basil, yep. And you made me think of oregano and olive leaf. Especially oregano, if it's good with bacteria, it's antimicrobial. So there's a lot of options there, and but at least this will give you some starting thoughts. So we're now to a portion, I'm going to scroll up in the chat and see what questions we might have. Feel free to type your questions or unmute yourself and ask if you'd like.
I don't have a question, but I just want to thank you and Magda very much for taking the time to present for us. So we appreciate any of this information that you give us. We're very thankful.
Well, I'm happy to do it. So thank you for saying so.
There's one question. Is it possible to get complete nutrition from a good lacto-vegetarian diet without, just a second, it went away.
Without the use
of any supplements? If not, which supplements are absolutely necessary that we don't receive from the food?
Yeah, so with that, with lacto-vegetarian, which for those of you that aren't sure what that is, that means basically eating all plant-based, a whole plant-based diet except for milk. I assume you're not eating eggs. Usually that would be lacto-ovo-vegetarian, but let me know if you are. So if it's just using dairy, that's a great way to get, you'll get branched chain amino acids in the dairy. I would suggest, if possible, pastured dairy, like grass-fed dairy, because that will provide more of the DHA, EPA, more of those omega-3s that I talked about. And that's the main, that's one of the things with that would still be there with lacto-vegetarian is maybe the EPA and DHA. It's really kind of blown my mind through the years how much we just, in general, most people don't get enough. And so I might say that the one supplement I would think of there would be the algae-based EPA and DHA. That's probably what I would suggest that you might not be able to get from food. But everything else that, we might be, there's a few other things we might be concerned about with vegan diet, but we would get it with the dairy. So I think you're good there.
I just want to
Vitamin D is almost across the board potentially low. So that's something to consider too. But if you're eating a lot of like dairy that has the D added back in, it might be okay. What were you going to say, Magda?
Sorry, I just wanted to say, looking for pastured dairy, there is a group they have a website, Food Circle. And like if you are looking for a goat milk or, any type of vegetables or raw honey, raw milk, butter, you go to Food Circle and you can look up any local farmers. They also have a listing of local farmers markets. They are starting up again in a month or so. Also, I wrote a blog post on the farmers markets around the city, how to shop for it, how to shop with seasons, and the one organic market in our town. If you have any questions how to locate the blog, email me. And there is another question here from Bridget, who says her 18-year-old granddaughter is exclusively drinking almond milk only. Is she getting enough nutrients?
Yeah. Is she, so she's exclusively drinking almond milk. Is she eating foods, or do you mean this is just
no.
Okay,
She
just making sure.
No, oh my.
I always have to clarify.
No, I know, and I should have. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We've tried, because we switched her off of she was on Nutrimogen. We switched her off of that. Tried, the regular milk, she couldn't do it. We tried, we went through everything. And finally we ended up, she can tolerate unsweetened almond milk.
Yeah.
But I thought, man, I wonder if that has enough nutrients in it.
Yeah, so every milk
she's
is
eating regular foods too.
Yeah. First I'll say, sounds like you're doing a great job, because if she's drinking almond milk, she's probably eating, I would guess, a lot of other nutritious foods.
Yes.
Good. After the age of 1, toddlers at that point don't require milk if they're eating a varied diet, but it can be beneficial and it's certainly helpful to get certain nutrition in. So what I do usually if at age 1 is that you can give them things like that they tolerate, like almond milk or coconut or, whatever works, regular milk. But know that it's like one piece of the overall diet. And if you're wanting to essentially replace what would be in breast milk or in a formula, bone broth is like as close as you can get. There's actually recipes for like women who can't nurse, who don't want to use formula, using either raw milk or bone broth to make like a formula that we enhance with other stuff. So some kids won't want to drink that, but at 18 months, if they're willing to try stuff, if you wanted to, like, it's up to you if you want to make that, or, there's a brand called Bonafide. I'll put that in the chat box.
Oh, yes. Okay.
If kids, if you start them early and they like it, it's a great way to get nutrition in, because it's got a lot of the nutrients that would be in mom's milk, so it's a great thing to have them sip on. But you can certainly do the almond milk, but I would agree it's you're getting some nutrients, but not some that you might be looking for out of milk.
Well, we don't give her like bread or cheese, we're trying to keep her, because it just, for one, it's not good for her, and a lot of that, and then for 2, she didn't tolerate it well, so we use a lot of cauliflower rice. And
yeah, good for you. Sounds like you're giving her a lot of great stuff.
Well, I learned from before. I used to not be this way. and had very poor health, but I turned
Yeah.
my life around 2 years ago. So now I'm a lot healthier. So
Yeah. You're passing
Yeah,
it
you
love
on.
look
it.
great. You know, I met you 2 years ago.
I
You look
am.
great.
Yes.
So we have one more question from Crystal. She says, I have side effects to supplements. Is it the best to take to take in powder form or just get nutrients from food? Also, do you have thoughts on essential oils for immune health? And I think I would also mention like there are difference between supplements if you buy them from CVS and supplements when you buy them from doctor supplement store or such.
Yep. I was totally I'll second that supplements are not created equal. So if you notice that there's a reaction to everything and you've gotten really high quality, like practitioner line supplements, then obviously there's something in that's an issue. But it may be that you needed a different brand. The second piece is that getting nutrition from food is the ultimate goal. Like the more we can get our nutrients from food, the better. There are a few things that are very hard to get from food, like vitamin D, magnesium, sometimes probiotics if you don't tolerate or aren't eating fermented foods, and omega-3s if you don't eat fish or are allergic or something. And then we're landlocked, so sometimes it's hard to get. It's can be a budget to get really good wild caught fish 3 times a week here. So those are the ones I'd say sometimes hard to get from food, but if you can get everything else from that, that's great. There may be a need for extra support in times of stress and illness and things like that. So that's where supplements, if you do get most of it from food, that may be the time to supplement. I see one other question here too. Is there certain limits of magnesium or IU for the vitamins intake? My doctor said that vitamin C, 5,000 milligrams. If exceeded the limit, my body will not accept it and just throwing my money. So yeah, there's definitely amounts and it varies per nutrient. In the case of vitamin C, we will eliminate with water soluble like B vitamins and vitamin C. We will just urinate out what we can't use at that time. But there is a long history of use of something called a vitamin C flush in times of illness or for specific issues, which is like taking very high, not very high, but taking like 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C every hour until it's called to bowel tolerance, meaning somebody gets a loose stool and then they know to stop or back down a little bit. And actually, I'm not prescribing or treating here, but I can share a story that my husband last fall had COVID, and that's what our functional medicine doctor prescribed for him, was to do a vitamin C flush. So you can look that up if you want to learn more about that. But so, and my point with that is that for immune function, there can be a place for a high dose like vitamin C injections or a vitamin C flush. But on a daily basis for maintenance, yes, there's not really a purpose to taking the really high amounts because you might not be able to really use that much. And with some nutrients like vitamin D, A, E, and K, that there's toxicity issues, same with zinc. So we want to be careful. We don't just want to like high dose things without practitioner or doctor support. Well, if you have any more questions, put them in here. I will also say over here in the slides, this is my website where I put a lot of blog articles and things. So, you know, if you're interested in gut health, I love writing about that. So feel free to check that out. There's also a guide to help with energy and sleep. If that's something that you're working on, it's a free guide. So feel free to go there and get that. And just to let you know that if you ever need support in the future, I always do a complimentary 30-minute call for new clients. That is just if you have questions or you need a referral. I know a lot of people in the functional medicine health providers in Kansas City. So even if I'm not what you need, I'm happy to just chat with you and provide a referral. So feel free to reach out if you need anything. And in regards to immune support, do you have any other things to add, Magda, or?
No, I just need to clear my reputation by 4. I meant all 4.
Gotcha. Yep. There you go. Yeah.
There's all right. People are just thanking you. What a wonderful session this was. And this says to get outside moving in the nice weather. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you. But it was wonderful, and we will see you again in a couple of months. We will discuss what can you surprise us with.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you guys. Once
Thank you
again,
very
thank you,
much.
Brooke.
Happy
You're
Friday.
welcome.
Be well.
You as well. Bye, guys.